When and where did you lose your focus? In the book of Matthew 14:29 to 30, it says, "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." So what we notice is that this was a time when Jesus was walking on water and Peter wanted to try it out. And Jesus tells him, "Come." And immediately he responds to the word. He walks in obedience and he comes out of the boat and begins to walk on water. Remember, this is a human being walking on water. And he walked towards water, but his focus was on Jesus. In verse 30, he shifts his focus from Jesus and he begins to notice the wind and notice what is around him. And fear came upon him and he became very unstable and began to sink. So you notice that what led to him sinking was the shift of focus. He shifted from Jesus to the surrounding, and then automatically it produced fear out of him, and he began to become very unstable. And this is what happens to most of us, that we have received that instruction, we have received the vision, we have begun to work on them. January has come, or the month that you intended to begin to work on what you are working on. You've built that vision board, you have written down the plans, you've written down the goals, and then now a time comes and you shift your focus from your vision, from the instruction, from obedience, and you begin to see the surrounding, the wind. You begin to get distracted by what other people are building. You begin to get distracted by the surrounding circumstances, the negatives that are happening, that are taking place around you. You begin to notice the limited resources that you have, and you're wondering, will I make it to the end? Will I make to build what I'm building to the end? Do I have the capacity to do it? Do I have the resources to do it? So and so looks better placed than that. And somehow we get afraid, we get fear, we get so scared of it. We are not able at times to even ask for help. And unlike Peter, who cried out to Jesus, we become very unstable. And instead of going back to Jesus, who gave us the instruction, or going back to God for help, we shelve the ideas, we shelve the visions, we shelve the goals, and we begin to realize that we are drifting and we are sinking and we are losing direction, and we become very unstable. So let's break it down to what happens practically. So when we are faced by a threat, and this is the place where we have shifted our attention from the person who gave us the instruction or the vision that we received, and we have begun to notice what is around. We have begun to compare. We have begun to see the glamour of what other people are doing. And what happens is that when we are faced with fear, from a physiological perspective, there's the part of the brain that becomes alert because of the threat, and it becomes very activated. And as it's getting activated, stress hormones are being released. And at the same time, we can feel the tension in our body, our muscles tighten up. We are not able to breathe. We are in a panicky mode, and I don't know whether you have ever gone through an anxiety and you realize that it becomes very hard for you to feel oxygen in your body. Literally, you can feel like air is not getting to my lungs. And probably this is what happened to Peter, that he became so conscious of the threat that it affected his body, and that's why he began to sink. All right. So physiologically, it will affect us. We become unstable. We cannot concentrate. Fear, what it does, it robs us of our cognitive flexibility. We can't make decisions. We can't be still emotionally. And when you're not stable internally, it becomes very hard for you to build and to make steady decisions. On the other hand, it's important also to note that spiritually, our attention directs agreement. This means that our attention, what we pay attention to, we agree to. With or without our permission, what we pay attention to, we agree to. So if you're paying attention to worry of how I will do it, to anxiety, to the negatives of comparison and what it does to us, we begin to reproduce that internally. It shapes when we shift our focus to the threats, to the things that are not working, to the limitations that we have. It begins to affect us internally. Emotionally, we become very unstable. Mentally, we are not able to make decisions. And so our spirits cannot be able to capture what God is telling us. If we don't get to a place where Peter got to and we cry for help, it becomes hard for us to receive from God, and because we are surrounded by the threats. We are surrounded by fear. And so spiritually, we need to know that when we are shifting our focus from our goals, we are making agreements with worry. We are making agreements with anxiety. We are putting imprints inside of us, inside of our soul. We are putting imprints of fear and worry and allowing it to define even our outcome, to define us and to define what we do and what we produce for God. And what that is doing to us, it is robbing us opportunities. It is robbing us time. It is robbing us good places and spaces where God has put us, where we can have impact to the next generation. We can have impact to the person next to us, where we can have impacts and solutions and provide solutions to people, because we are stuck because of fear. We have allowed fear, we have allowed distractions, we have allowed these distractions to define inside of us. So we need to ask ourselves, when and where did we lose that moment? When and where did we begin to look away? Because that's the starting point of us becoming stable. So think about it. Where did I lose my focus? Because when you become aware of that, that becomes the starting point, and that is the place we begin, because we need to build our capacity. We need to rebuild mental discipline. We need to rebuild our emotional stability. We need to rebuild our spiritual alignment, because these are the foundations of the capacity of us as the vessels that are carrying the vision, that are carrying what God has placed in us for this generation, for the society, for the people that God has put in our lives. So it is important for us to ask, where did I begin to lose focus? Where did I look away? Where did I allow myself to see the things that became a threat to me, and instead of running to God, I became so afraid, and I became so unstable, and I shelved and I put away what I was meant to do. Remember, the assignment is still waiting for you, and the starting point for you is to begin to ask yourself, where did I look away? When you realize where you looked away, when you realize where your focus shifted, it becomes your starting point for you to regain your stability. That's where we begin. Where did you lose your focus?